Hey guys, it's Izzy here, and today we're going to be doing a sort of wrap-up kind of video. Last year, I posted a video of all the books that I thought would be 5 stars in 2023. Now we're looking at how that ended up. Did those books end up being 5 stars, or did they not? We're going to find out today. Let's get into it. This video will be more of a review. I won't be saying a description of these books, so if you guys would like to see the descriptions of the books to see if there's something that you would like to pick up, I am going to leave a link down below in the description box if you guys would like to watch the original video where I go into what these books are about and why I think they were going to be 5 stars. First book I'm going to talk about today is the only nonfiction on this list, and that is Love, Pamela by Pamela Anderson. This is her memoir. I did annotate it, and I followed along in the physical copy with the audiobook because Pamela Anderson herself narrated the audiobook. This was authentic, intelligent, and relatable. In the last pages, Pamela talks about meeting a director and how he tells her that she is vulnerable, and that's not something you really see in Hollywood today. That's a great way to describe this book. She's so vulnerable, just putting everything out there on the table for the reader to digest. So open and unique, and there was no ghostwriter, and it was still amazingly, is that a word, written. As I said, it was unique because it was told in not just prose, but we also had poetry included as well, and I've never read a book where it's just going between all kind of different formats, but it just flowed so well doing that, and it never felt like it was trying too hard. In a sense, she was able to finally tell her life from her side. I did love this book. It's a new favorite, and it's one of the 3 5 stars on this list. Next we have Betty. I did read this one physically and I annotated it as well, and this is by Tiffany McDaniel. This is a historical fiction novel. So Betty is such a rare gem by there being so many characters, because we are following one family, and you know, back in the 1950s people were having a lot of kids. There were quite a bit of point of views that we followed, but it was never difficult because the characters were so unique, so different in their own ways. The author did a great job at developing all of these characters, giving them all depth. None of them were one-dimensional, but I really connected with Betty and her father, Landon, and seeing their relationship. Tiffany McDaniel's writing was so authentic to the American experience. The setting was amazing. It's rural Ohio, just very gritty, showing what life is really like for a lot of people. It's hard to believe that it was fictional by how real and authentic it felt. It was such an emotionally gripping book, talking about themes of womanhood, coming of age, poverty, and just life in rural America. It was so compelling, emotionally gripping, left me feeling dead emotionally afterwards. This was a 5 out of 5. I loved it, highly recommend it, and one of my favorite books of 2023. I fully lied when I said Love, Pamela was the only nonfiction. I should have said it was the only memoir, only biography. Yeah, that's only biography because there are actually 2 more nonfiction books, and one of those is the Medici by Mary Hollandsworth. But this is such a beautifully printed book with the illustrations throughout. It just is such well done. It was from Hedda Zeus, which is one of my favorite publishing houses. What I knew about the Medici before were their golden age with like Lorenzo the Magnificent, that era, but this one really expanded my knowledge, going from their start to basically their downfall. Learned about the eras that I thought I knew so much about. I learned so much more about those eras. And honestly, that's only as great when you think you know everything about a topic and you just add more to that knowledge. It did get dense at times, so I would recommend reading this in intervals rather than sitting down and trying to read a ton at once. Don't do that. Nonfiction is a dense genre, but this one really is, because you are going through so much of history. Definitely read maybe 25 pages at a time, sit down, have a break, and then come back in a few hours and read some more. Love the family trees that we saw, maps and illustrations throughout the novel, and I did actually follow along with the audiobook. I did go and check, so I would recommend doing that as well. But this did not hit that full 5 star just because it did get so dense at times. I ended up giving this a 4 star, so I still loved it, but it's not a new favorite book. Now we have Ghostwritten by David Mitchell. He's an author. I want to read so many of his books, so I went and started with his first published work, and that is Ghostwritten. And I did annotate Ghostwritten as well, like I did with Betty and La Pamela. There are plenty of characters here, and we did get one point of view chapter from each of them. Some I connected with, some I didn't, but I didn't hate any of them, so that's always great when I don't absolutely hate reading from a character. But also, it's kind of bad when you don't connect. But I did connect with some of them, so that's a positive. And if you're wondering who my favorite character was, it was the woman running a tea shack in China. This book showed many places in its setting of places that I've never got to read stories from, and I really loved getting to do that. I'm talking like the East, Mongolia, and places out in that part of the world, former Soviet Union countries. I'm always fascinated what culture is like there, but I always have a hard time finding books in English. Now, I mean, obviously this isn't own voices for that, but I will take what I can get. The writing was fine and the plot was good, and I love looking for Easter eggs from previous chapters and the other chapters and point of view characters. The thing is, I don't know what the point of this was. Was this like a Y2K messing up the world? I'm really confused what the point of the story was, and it's definitely up in air for a lot of people. Nobody really knows. I've read so many different theories and Reddit threads. I don't have any set in stone. So let me know if you've read Ghostwritten, what is your theory, what this book is about? I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. So it was good and I would still recommend it, but I didn't love it and it's not a new favorite. We have Washington, A History of Our National City by Tom Lewis. I read this big nonfiction beast physically, which was very scary. When books are over 500 pages, I like to read the audiobook, but there was no audiobook for this one, so it was a very scary and intimidating experience. I learned a lot, and this book gave me pretty much everything I wanted out of it. The issue was it was jumping around a bit and there were a lot of time gaps, so I want to know what was happening between those instances of time. That being said, the story didn't flow well, but I still loved it and I got what I wanted out of it, and that's always what you want in reading, so I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. We have a science fiction epic, and that is The Actual Star by Monica Byrne. I've gifted this book since I've read it. I've recommended it to a lot of people. So let's see what my in-depth thoughts were. I definitely would not label this as a character-driven novel. Connected mostly with Leah in the 2012 plotline. I think that's because I lived when that plotline was going on, and I really do remember the chaos of December 2012, and that's what this is kind of centering around, is everybody thought the world was going to end because of the Mayan calendar. People were scared. There were end of the world parties, and I remember listening to Dance Till the World Ends by Britney Spears going into that day. I actually had surgery on that day as well, so it was not a good day for me, but I don't... did the world end? I might have. I don't know. The atmosphere was very unique. I've never read a book set in Belize or around Central American mythology, which was super fascinating getting to read on. Writing was fine, but it was a bit open-ended, so it left me with a lot of questions, and I do not like that for fiction. I need it to be set in stone, everything wrapped up. That's the plot now. Yes, let's do it. We're going to start with the plot that takes place in 1012 and go in chronological order by the years presented in the novel. I would have enjoyed the 1012 plotline more if I had prior knowledge on the Mayan. In America, we don't really learn that much about them. I learned some in Spanish class. I actually remember seeing it in the textbook, and then some in like ancient world history. But if I had more background knowledge on Mayan mythology or Maya mythology, I definitely would have enjoyed that plotline more. And that's a bit of my fault, but also more world building could have been put into that to make it better. As I mentioned, 2012, I really enjoyed. It followed the 2012 hysteria of the world ending, and I did like that. We are still in Belize, so that, as I said, that was a new setting for me, but I had a better time understanding it as it took place in our modern world and in a time period that I lived in. So onto our final plot line, which takes place in 3012, so 1,000 years, 12 years after I took a trip to the year 3000. Yeah, this is the one I liked the least and found the most confusing, so this is definitely your more sci-fi one of the plots, and with sci-fi, you need a ton of world building, and it just wasn't there in the actual star. It needed to be a better connection between that plotline and our previous plotlines, especially the 2012 plotline, in my opinion. The themes that I enjoyed the most were legend, religion, and myth, and how that all comes to be. Love The Actual Star, but it's not a new favorite. It was a 4 out of 5, but still I loved it, and as I said, I've gifted it to people, recommended it to people, so still pick this up if you're interested. I have a romance novel, and that's Love, Comment, Subscribe by Kathy Yardley. I was really scared that I wasn't going to end up liking our female character, Lily. She just seemed so hypocritical to me. As I said, she was hypocritical, and I really didn't like how she spoke of other women. She judged them on their looks, and that's just something I am big against. Lily, the author was aware of this, and another character called her out, but that didn't happen until the end of the novel. However, both characters work in the same field as me, and that was really relatable and fun to read about. Setting was California. It didn't bring anything new to the table. It was a fine time, didn't play a huge part in the story. The writing was quick and easy to read, which is always a plus when reading a book. So this book would be a great read on like a weekend in summertime. If you're on a little getaway, I'd recommend picking this one up. The plot wasn't what I expected, but it was good. Like the movie Grease, I didn't like that the characters had to change who they were as people to fit as a couple. I don't think you have to change your whole personality, change your job, change your persona to be in a relationship with another person. Compromising to be in a relationship and all, but just how it was done here, I don't think it was done well, and I don't know if they're gonna last as a couple. So I love this book, but it's not a new favorite, therefore it was a 4 out of 5. Now we have Play It As It Lays by Joan Didion. I did annotate this one, and that's only so fun. This is the classic out of the books on this list. Character Maria, you can see how influential she was on a lot of books that you see in this feminist or more so sad girl lit genre. This, I feel like, was the starting stone of that genre, and you can definitely see how that character inspired other characters in the genre, particularly in the 2020s. Nevertheless, these books and characters, even though they're not only as likable, I love to read them. I love dissecting them and analyzing their actions. I adored the settings of California, Nevada. They felt authentic, like the author wasn't really trying, and it just flowed so nicely with the story. Writing was the standout element of Play It As It Lays. Blunt and straightforward, cutting to the chase, accessible, and an easy, fast-paced reading experience for the reader. Plot wasn't too exciting for me. I still think it is so relatable for a female reader over 50 years later after it was published. I love this book. It was a 4.5 out of 5 stars, so close to a 5-star, but it just didn't hit that quality for me. Now we have probably the book that disappointed me the most out of this list. That doesn't necessarily mean it had the lowest rating, but I honestly expected so much more from this book, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang, and it's another one that I ended up annotating. I was shocked by how poorly written these characters were. But maybe this needed to be a series like the Poppy Wars instead of just this one book to give the characters more time to develop and for the reader to actually like them. Really enjoyed the Georgian and Victorian settings of the novel. However, the writing was one of the reasons I didn't absolutely love this book like I thought I would. My goal in reading is to see the world from another person's eyes, to step into a character's shoes, and Babel did do a good job at that. Still enjoyed the majority of my time reading Babel, but I wouldn't rush people to go pick up this book, but if it's something you think you would be interested in, then do it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, so it was still a good book, but I didn't love it. The character work really drove me up a wall, but still, if you think you might like it, pick it up because this is a very popular book by R.F. Kuang. Now we have my best book of the year. I followed along with the audiobook, and that is The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoré Fannin Jeffers. So great books are always the hardest to review, so bear with me as we go through this 5-star journey of love songs. So I wouldn't say Ailey is one of my favorite characters that I've read from, but I definitely enjoyed going on this journey of life with her from when she's a little toddler to a grown woman in her 20s or 30s. There are many characters in this novel. It's great that there was a family tree included, and I was constantly having to flip back to that, so I did get kind of confused at times, but if we did not have that tree, this book probably wouldn't have got a 5-star. Many of these characters just reminded me of people in my own life, and that just shows how authentically Southern this atmosphere is. The depiction of Southern culture, the food, the ecosystem, people, dialect was spot on for this book. This was a debut novel. This author is originally a poet, and you can definitely tell with the writing it's very poetic, lyrical, and gorgeous. Length, this book, it just flows so well. It never feels dense, and the plot twist I didn't see coming at all, and I'm usually somebody who can predict them. The plot is something I've been wanting so long, following a family from colonial times all the way to our modern era and seeing just how rough life can be, and these characters just felt so real that it didn't read like fiction, it felt like fact. And it was so draining like Betty was. There are so many similarities between this and Betty, so I definitely recommend both of these as they were my 2 favorite books of the year. But this is the plot that I've been wanting to read so long. So if you like big historical epics, think like Ken Follett, Diana Gabaldon, pick up the Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. This was my favorite book. I loved it, and my best book of 2023. We are down to our final 2 books. So we have Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen. Now this is a historical fiction novel, but more so taking place in the second half of the last century. Character development in this book is some of the best that I've read this year. I really appreciated following one family from the adults, the parents, and then their young adult children. It's really captivating of how they were all raised by the same parents but took such different paths, and that the writer didn't have a hard time making all these characters feel like their own character. Unlike many novels taking place in the 1970s, this was just following one family in suburban America and how their life is. And I really liked that we saw suburban America and not Hollywood or New York. Writing was my only issue with the story. It was hard to follow the timelines and just how the writer did their time jumps and flashbacks. It was awkward and choppy. I really liked the themes that were family and religion, and just how religion can play a part in your upbringing, and seeing that involved with the counterculture. That's something that I never thought about. So I really did love the themes here. And I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So I loved it, but not a new favorite. Made it to our last book, and that is Still Life by Sarah Winman, another historical fiction novel, because that's my favorite genre. So I expect all of them. Not really, but I expect a lot of them to be 5 out of 5 stars. A lot of different kinds of characters from different classes, different ages, different sexualities. So it was such a wholesome cast of characters. If you like the found family trope, then I definitely recommend this because I loved them so much. They were so wholesome. They weren't Mary Sue's though, so don't think that, because they all had their faults and flaws, but you couldn't help but love them and root for them. So London and Florence, those are vibrant cities as it is, and they really come off the page. And I loved those settings of post-World War II Europe, and how there was hope, but some people didn't have hope, which is, that's so sad to think about. How there is just that hopeful feeling after you go through something so bad in life. You can only hope that it gets better, and this is such a hopeful novel. That is the word that I would use to describe Still Life. The writing was episodic, so it felt like it was a lot of stories put together, but the dialogue, and it was just so clever and so British. So it reminds me of June. I think it would be the perfect summer read. I loved it, and I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. Those were the books that I thought were going to be 5 stars. Only 3 of them ended up being. Stay tuned next week to see the books in 2024 that I think will be a 5 star. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a book stack emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. And if you would like to find me on other social media platforms, my link tree is down below in the description if you would like to do that. But I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!